Have you ever struggled with cramping legs or gut issues when racing or riding? Or are you like me and you just inexplicably fall apart when it gets hot?
Those are hard conditions for me, being that hot. So any day I don't end up in the ER is good.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
What would you say if I told you the answer to these problems might be inside this tiny little tube?
It's definitely a game changer for some athletes.
We're Sid and Mackie, and we're professional mountain bikers on a quest to race the best and most challenging races around the world. We have a big schedule planned for 2024, including some races that are going to take us way out of our comfort zones. We're always looking for ways to improve both our fitness and our fueling strategies. After all, eating and hydrating wins races. So today, we're gonna do something a little different. We're going to get our sweat tested.
What's happening?
See it?
It's happening!
And we get some unexpected results.
I'm kind of nervous.
Me too. I don't know why, because there's no way to fail this test.
There's no failing.
Yeah. The number is still going up.
42.
What the heck? Okay, so while we're here in Boulder, Mackie's here working away, we are also meeting with Dina, our dietitian, who we've been working with for about a year, and we're gonna do something called sweat sodium testing, which we've wanted to do for a while, partially to help us make a better hydration fueling plan, and also I think just out of like perverse curiosity. It's just one of those things that I don't really know. Oh, there's Dina now. So I have a slight hypothesis that maybe I'm like a low volume sweater, but then also Mackie eats more salt than me, so I don't know. But he drinks so much more water than me. I think you're like high volume and high salt.
I don't think I'm especially high volume though, because like.
But you drink so much water, where is it going? Mackie drinks easily 3 times as much water as me. So either I'm chronically dehydrated,
Which is possible.
which is certainly possible, or he's a much heavier sweater. But anyway, we're gonna answer all of these questions and more today. This is Dina, the nutrition mechanic, and she's gonna be doing the sweat sodium testing with us, and we're gonna let her explain what this is and why someone might wanna do it. We've worked with Dina for about a year. She definitely helped us last off season, kind of dial in our nutrition, and we're excited to do this and maybe improve our hydration strategy going forward, or have a hydration strategy.
Well, it is dialing in more what your individual needs are. In terms of sodium replenishment, it tends to be more applicable during training and competitions than on your everyday basis, but it can inform if you're a particularly salty sweater or you just sweat a lot. We might want to be more particular in daily hydration strategies. Sodium in your sweat is highly genetically determined. And there's about a 10-fold difference between people. Wow. That's not even talking about your sweat rate.
This is just the sodium.
Just the sodium. The range that we see here in terms of sodium per liter of sweat, on the low side, around 200 milligrams of sodium. We've seen upwards of about 2,400 milligrams, and this is per liter of sweat, so about a 2-pound sweat fluid loss. We used to think it's just sodium you eat in your diet or whatever that's going to influence how salty your sweat is, but the dietary role is like 10%.
Wow.
Okay.
So like what we do today is measure how salty your sweat is, but how much sodium in terms of milligrams per liter of sweat. Even though we're not going to capture a liter, the machine's going to do the extrapolation and help us out there. If you were to then like go eat a bunch of ramen and totally salt overload yourself and come back and do the test again, the difference is minimal. The other part of the equation is how much we sweat. So how much in ounces or liters do we sweat? So how much volume of fluid are you losing? That's what we're not measuring today, but everyone can do pretty much on their own if you have a digital weight scale. The process is essentially preferably weighing yourself nude before a workout. So you would pee, do all your bathroom business, and then weigh yourself nude, write that number down, go do your workout of choice. It's great to have workouts, in a variety of weather conditions, a variety of exercise intensities. This is the dream, to just collect different data, environmental conditions. Then, you would note duration of that workout. Try not to pee, because that's fluid we're losing. And then it's great to have some data points where if we're drinking, it's just water, so we're not skewing any of the info. At the end of your workout, then you would towel off sweat, take clothes off, so we're back in the initial state that we were.
Dry and naked, basically.
Yeah, and weigh yourself. So the formula is pre-exercise weight, add fluids you drank to your pre-exercise weight, subtract your post-exercise weight, and then divide by time in hours or minutes, however we would have our formula set up. And that's going to tell us how much fluid we lost per hour. This is a non-exercise test, which is why we're set up here instead of on the bike. Process is pretty cool. So we've got this induction box, for lack of a better word. This is like the unit that gets you in that initiation of sweat. How it works, there's a 9-volt battery in this box, and we've got a negative and positive electrode. We put these little gel pads, and this contains a compound called pilocarpine, which when we turn this on, we're creating an electrical gradient of sorts. And with that stimulation, the compound in the gel disc is getting penetrated to the skin, and that whole process is simulating our sweat response without having to exercise. So the result we get after we get a sweat sample and run it through this machine, it resembles, or I should say it is applicable to whole body sweat. Wow. In a matter of minutes, we'll figure out where you each are, and then what we can do is look at what you've been doing with hydration, like with Scratch products or other electrolyte products, and see could it be fine-tuned a little more to enhance your hydration or to support you, like when you're in your hot climates or your hot races. Can we be a little more aggressive, or perhaps you've been doing it all spot on and this just validates.
While we wait for these electrodes to do their work, I want to take a minute to explain why I really wanted to try this testing. My entire life, I have struggled in the heat. As a kid, I would get a good bout of heat sickness at least once a year, and as a college student, I once ended up in the ER getting rehydrated after a hot bike race. Since then, I've had multiple instances of heat illness and many races that I frankly just sucked it up in for no good reason other than it was hot. This year, I finally figured out a system that kept me going in the heat at BC Bike Race, which was essentially just drinking buckets of Scratch Labs clear formula.
Each day I filled my pack with about 1,500 milliliters of water and 4 scoops of Scratch Clear hydration.
Unfortunately, with the news that Scratch is discontinuing Clear, I'm hoping to figure out why that works so well and how I can replicate it with other products.
We'll remove these guys and then attach this to your arm. And it's a small tube. There's a little hole there on the bottom with the pressure on that point. We'll start to see some collection of sweat.
I don't have a strong hypothesis on this. Other than that, I feel like Mackie drinks a lot more water than me and likes his food saltier. So I don't know what that means, but I also think if we're in the sauna, I start dripping sweat first.
It's true.
So that's weird.
That's the two parts of the equation. This is more of a constant. So like I said earlier, this part's not going to change dramatically, whereas your sweat rate is more dynamic.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. If it's a harder course or whatever, you're working harder, right? You should sweat more. Or if it's hotter,
right,
more humid, you might. And then if you combine these factors, or if you're overdressed, you know, you might. So that part's the moving piece of the equation. It's tricky for people up here, like very salty in their sweat, and if they're a heavy sweater or the situation or circumstances are such that they're sweating a lot and endurance oriented, right? Like 3-4 hour plus. Your hourly losses are so extensive and so vast that just try and keep up with fluid, like you were mentioning, fluid intake, and then what's in the bottle, right? Like how much sodium are we getting? Yeah, so we should start to see a little bit of blue. It might take a couple minutes, but that blue food dye is just so that we can see the sweat starting to collect. This part, I'm always impatient, like hurry up and sweat. I want to see it, but it can take, 3-5 minutes.
It's pretty cool.
It's happening.
See
It's
it?
happening.
See a little blue?
Whoa.
So it's definitely a game changer for some athletes that struggle. Like, I'm having GI issues. Is it my fueling or my hydration?
Interesting.
Is it like they're taking too much sodium? I've seen that happen. Oh, I'm supposed to take salt because I'm sweaty. And then we find out, man, you're taking...
Well, and I feel like the super high sodium things are kind of trendy right now.
Yeah,
like the element stuff.
Definitely. I have seen cases, we do this test, and actually it is that, like, oh, you are taking way too much. You're not a heavy sweater. You're not a salty sweater.
But you're still taking all this salt, and that's, yeah.
Okay, brief editor's note. Since I brought up Element, this is a product that people have asked us about a lot because it's so popular and it's such a common sponsor of podcasts and YouTube videos. First of all, nothing against Element as a brand or the product. I do think, however, it's important for people to be aware of what they are consuming, and a single serving of Element has 1,000 milligrams of sodium in it, which, as you are about to see, is on the extreme end of what most people lose in a liter of sweat. So what does that mean? It means that it's a great product in certain circumstances for certain people. We use Scratch's wellness and hyperhydration formulas, which are similar in the amount of sodium to Element. We use those during BC Bike Race after the race days because we were sweating so much. And so I think if you are in circumstances where you are sweating a lot, Element is a great product. If you're someone who has salty sweat, maybe you've done this test, or you just know based on looking at the white crusty marks on your clothing after you ride, Element might be a great product for you. I think it's probably not necessary on days where you're not sweating a lot. So just a little food for thought. If you use it and it works for you, great, awesome. Whether or not it is too much sodium obviously is going to depend a lot on like how much sodium you are getting in the rest of your diet. There's definitely a lot of factors. It's a product that should be used cautiously. It should be used intentionally. And yeah, those are my thoughts. So yeah, back to the video.
This is in millimoles of sodium. So the number that we see here won't be in milligrams. We'll have to convert it. The average is like 42 to 52. I'm kind of nervous.
Me too. I don't know why, because there's no way to fail this test.
There's no failing. This is the snazzy, fancy method here. I'm basically just slowly pushing the sweat sample through. This is one of the clean, empty tubes. Just it's going to come out the other side, basically.
Cool.
So it's real time measuring it as it passes, and it averages it out, or
there's a conductor unit that's looking at the solute concentration.
Okay. The number's still going up.
67.
So what we want to do is look for where it peaks and kind of. So we've got just a little bit through on the other side. I'm gonna keep going a little bit. It might fluctuate
69.
a little bit. 1371 is what we're looking at in milligrams. It's putting you like
on the high edge of
high.
high.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the thing would be to find out, like, how much do you sweat? Are you sweating more than a liter? When does that happen? What are the circumstances? Because Sid, if you are sweating a couple pounds in certain situations, and let's say you're taking in a serving of scratch hydration, that's about 380 milligrams.
Yeah, so that's not nearly
it's
enough.
like not even a
basically.
third, right?
Wow, yeah.
Okay.
Of what you're, and who cares for an hour or two?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like,
Or if it's not that hot. I don't necessarily feel like I sweat a lot when we do the winter training, but I
Yeah.
mean, this could make sense why I have trouble in the heat.
yes,
Because all of a sudden I'm sweating a lot and losing a lot of salt.
exactly.
Yeah.
you
Very
can
curious
do
to see what
especially on the
Mackey's
gloves.
is like comparatively.
Muscle cramping, exercise related,
Mm-hmm.
is multifactorial. So usually the more trained an individual, the
Yeah.
less cramping, especially if you've done strength training and really worked.
Yeah.
Plus your experience level over the
Yeah.
years, like there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
And your dietary pattern is pretty darn awesome, meaning you've got quality, ample electrolytes. With this info that we have now, it's further individualizing your own strategy, which is so cool.
Because then you might go to a race, say, okay, average temperature is going to be 70 degrees. I know it's a race intensity, which is going to be hard.
Yes.
So I can calculate, here's approximately how much fluid I'm going to lose, here's approximately how much sodium I'm going to lose. And is the goal to fully replace sodium, the sodium quantity and fluid quantity?
Love that you asked this. I'd say no. It's very difficult to do, for one thing, to do 100% replacement of fluid and sodium. I would say we look to replenish or replace a portion. Maybe I get a little nervous to say exact
Okay.
percentage.
Yeah.
I would say if I had to pick a range, I might be conservative, like 65 to 90%
Okay.
replenishment. I've seen, for example, some male athletes lose 2.5 liters of sweat per hour. Extremely
Yeah.
You
sweaty.
can't drink 2.5 liters of water.
No,
Yeah.
so like my 90% rule would go out the window
Yeah,
because
of
they would.
course.
There's no way to
Yeah.
just drink that much.
Yeah.
For newer recreational athletes, I might start on the lower end and kind of work our way up. I might be a little more aggressive in like the 10-12 hours prior to race instead of like the whole day before. I might hit that acute window of time and really bump up your sodium intake. That is basically increasing your plasma volume. You're storing more water, but that's going to help you, again, just thermoregulate a little more efficiently as you start the race. So we'll pop off the little plastic top. Should we like put some $10 down on what the...
I really have no idea. I was kind of wrong.
I'm going to
so
predict
far.
less. I'm going to predict lower sodium amount than Sid because
Yeah.
I don't, like Sid tends to finish rides and have the,
But why do
like
you,
the white-
you always add more salt to your food?
that's because I don't add as much hot sauce as you do, and
Yeah,
hot sauce
okay.
has salt in it.
That is not universally true.
I think maybe you sweat a little more.
Yeah, I think my
Matthew.
quantity may be higher. Wow.
Whoa.
Okay, 40, 41.
Yeah.
No
I'm
way.
still going.
It's like half as much.
2/3.
Okay, that it's not budging.
Okay.
42.
What the heck?
That's kind of explains a lot on your, like the fact that you would struggle in heat. Is like if you're losing that much more sodium and like then the race BCBR, when you did take the time to like really like
Totally.
drink a ton,
Yeah.
that's
no.
significant.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Well,
now
and
that
the thing I did different, to be honest, at VCBR was put the clear in the pack.
So instead of water, you
right.
had more electrolytes.
Yeah.
So that kind
Yeah.
of tracks.
Here is Mackey's 42 millimoles is 860 milligrams.
Wow.
So that, keeps
Okay.
you more here in
On the
this
low
moderate,
side of medium.
Yeah. Next steps is figuring out what your sweat rate is, that volume aspect.
Over the past few weeks, we've been tracking our fluid loss during workouts and starting to put together this data.
0.2 of a pound?
Obviously, it's winter, so we won't have a complete picture until we see how much we're sweating during hot workouts, but it's already clear that this is going to be super helpful info. And next week, we'll be putting this knowledge into practice in the field at our first race of 2024. We'll see you then.
Oh, I remember this section. It's rough on the legs.
And now there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin.